Hello everybody, welcome to the Red Devil Experience. How you all doing? My name is Eric, I'm your host today. We are here live with the Red Devil Daily, where we discuss Manchester United news over the past 24 hours and the latest breaking Manchester United news. We have quite a couple things to discuss today. We have Sir Alex Ferguson has apparently been sacked from his ambassador role from INEOS. Ruthless move. It has divided the fan opinion in Manchester United, so something more divisive. We're going to get into that. We have Ten Hag updates about the INEOS meeting, his security, his job, and how that's going to go. We have transfer target updates. We also have player returning from injury updates. We have managerial updates, and we have a couple loose ends dealing with some current United players. So we're going to get straight into all of that. If you can, please smash the like button for me if you enjoyed the content and you want to help the channel grow, because it is important. So if you smash the like button, we greatly appreciate it. So thank you very much. And if you're not a subscriber and you want to join our wonderful community, then subscribe and make sure you turn on the notifications, hit the little bell icon so you know when we go live and you never miss a show, and you're here and you get involved, because everybody is welcome. Everybody is welcome to voice an opinion, and we want to hear from everybody no matter what your opinion is, even if it is the opposite of what I believe or what others on this channel believe. So 100% we want to hear from you, so get involved. But we're gonna get straight into the big news that came out today, and this came out early in the day. And apparently INEOS have ended a multi-million-pound annual commitment to Sir Alex Ferguson. He will no longer be a paid club ambassador. He's held this role since he's retired from his managerial duties at Manchester United. This has divided a lot of the fan base with multiple different opinions on different sides. A lot of people are very angry at this move from INEOS. A lot of people are not happy with INEOS. A lot of people think that it is a disgrace of a move. Erik Ten Hag has put in his own input as well, and we're going to get into his response and his thoughts that he's posted to Instagram. But other people also thinking that it is a good move. There has been an argument for quite some time in the fan base that Manchester United have to move on from Sir Alex Ferguson, that he is a distraction, and that he has not really helped Manchester United with his presence being around. It kind of looms back to the past, and we can't really move forward and out of that. So we're really going to get into that discussion today. But there has been a couple updates to follow up from that. And these updates have been that Sir Alex Ferguson and the Manchester United Football Board have been asked to not enter the dressing room at Old Trafford, breaking a tradition that stretches back to the days of Sir Matt Busby. So this update came on top of that, which adds a little bit more fuel to the fire, in my opinion, because not only is Sir Alex Ferguson no longer going to be the ambassador and paid, but now he is also not going to be able to enter the dressing room. It is quite infuriated more fans that have seen this as a disgrace, have seen this as an abomination, to put it a little bit more lightly, really, because I've seen some very angry responses to this, and I have my own opinion on it. I'm a little bit caught between both sides on it, to be quite honest, but I will, get into it for sure. And we had another update that goes into United deny that they have directly banned Ferguson from the changing room, but they say there is now a collective understanding over who goes inside. Visits to the dressing room have been part of the club's culture for decades. Ferguson and fellow football board members David Gill and Mike Edelson were always welcome, as were Sir Bobby Charlton and former director Maurice Watkins before they passed away. And yeah, and the update that falls into that is that obviously the policy regarding locker room access was discussed prior to the start of this season, and a mutual agreement was reached that board members would now remain outside. And my feeling on this really is that, I really think that Manchester United I mean, we discussed this a couple days ago on the channel, and I think, Manchester United do really have to come into the 2024. They have to come into, the modern era. And while the Ferguson era will always be one of the greatest and one of the most important eras in Manchester United's long-standing history, there was always in a debate of, does his presence hurt Manchester United in its current in its current form? Is it holding it back? I see arguments on both sides. I do understand both sides. I kind of feel, I feel sad that this has to be a thing, but maybe it is a good thing. I mean, we don't really know. We have to see, what really comes out of this. I mean, but it is just sad. It's sad that, that he, because it was like the fantasy of when he would, before he retired, everybody was always like, he retires and he goes up as, one of the great time all greats. And maybe he, he stays on, like, overlooking at the club and just kind of guiding it through that path. But that obviously hasn't really happened. Like, obviously he's been there. He's had his input in certain things, says on certain things, but I don't really know how to what to make of this, because I think there's maybe some good and some bad. I think, it is, I couldn't see how people view it as disgraceful because of everything he's done for the club, and the legend that he is to the club. But at the same time, maybe his presence was kind of a distraction, and maybe it was holding the club back, and maybe it was putting extra pressure in the dressing room on certain players. And maybe Manchester United was kind of always just living in that shadow of the Sir Alex Ferguson era. And when you live in that shadow, it's hard to get in front of that shadow. It's hard to move out of that shadow. It's hard to create a new sort of era and move past that. And when everybody's always looking at that era and going back to that era, and you can't really do it if the guy is always hanging around, really, to be honest. Richard is in here and Sadiq is in here, and Richard is saying maybe their actions were correct, however the way they done it was not. And I kind of agree more to that sentiment, because it seems the way it's gone down and the way it's been announced, has been kind of, listen, we've talked, I mentioned last time about that Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Sir David Brailsford are ruthless people. And I think this is a prime example. And while it's not the example I would have liked, I think, there is an argument right now in the fan base that many people are saying, they've sacked Sir Alex Ferguson while they keep Ten Hag here. There's comparisons to they've sacked Sir Alex Ferguson, but they've kept certain players here. The most noticeable ones that people are really saying and talking about is Marcus Rashford and Bruno Fernandes, because they are on the highest wages and they are seen as problems throughout the fan base. And I don't really think that it's really a comparison. You can't really make those comparisons, in my opinion. I think it's completely different aspects. I do get why people are comparing them. But I think, there's totally different aspects. Sir Alex Ferguson is, what, 82 years old or something? He's retired and he's on the board. Like, it's easier to remove Sir Alex Ferguson and stop paying him, what he was getting paid and in his ambassador role than it is to remove players on certain contracts. And the managerial role is different as well. I mean, not only is there a financial aspect of it, but there's also an aspect of still trying to give him some time. This was more about making more structural changes that INEOS obviously had been doing, but also, cost saving. Because not for nothing, as much as I love Sir Alex Ferguson and I respect Sir Alex Ferguson, him getting paid a multi-million-pound deal a year to do an ambassador role, that really, I mean, I've read up on it, and the only thing that he has gone on his name as an ambassador role is not quite a lot. So it was more of just like a thing by the Glazers, I guess, to kind of, and this is what I read, but they sort of stated it that it was really a thing to just kind of compensate Sir Alex for everything that he's done for the club. The Glazers had no problem giving him this money as kind of, payment for everything that he did for the club in the past and all the success. But if you're looking at a financial aspect, it is sort of a kind of waste of money, and really in that terms. But people aren't gonna like me saying that because it's Sir Alex Ferguson. But at the end of the day, it kind of is. And that line kind of hit me too, because there's always been people that have argued that, Sir Alex also shares fault and blame for the Glazers, successfully taking this club over and allowing them to do what they did, because he's never come out against them. He's never spoken ill of them in any manner. Even after he retired, he's continued to stay on. And a lot of people have pointed out to the fact that it's because, he takes their money. Which I guess, you can look at it in that way, because they were giving him a multi-million-year deal. So, he was never really going to, regardless, their relationship is good, but in the eyes of the fans, we always looked at Ferguson, and a lot of people wanted him to come out and say something against the Glazers, because it would be the most powerful thing anybody can do. And obviously he was never really going to do it because of their relationship. I mean, they respected him. He respects them for whatever reason. It's something that's always mystified me, and I've never really understood it. Because I think they've done a lot of bad for the club, and I think he's not, he's not a stupid man. I think he's aware of the bad things that have gone on at the club, but for whatever reason, he's never done it. So, I think, with Ferguson, there's some good to look at it, but there's also some bad. I think it's a sad day at the club. I think it's a sad decision. And I think the way INEOS have gone about announcing it and the way it's come out looks very, very bad on them in certain aspects. I think other people that are happy about it, they're going to view it as a strong move, a ruthless move. I think they're going to see it as a powerful move. But a lot of people see it in a very disrespectful manner. It's angered a lot of the United fan base, and I can't disagree with them, how you feel on this. I think it's more of a personal thing. And it's definitely a very opinional thing, because some people are absolutely outraged, and I can understand the outrage, and I'm not going to disagree with them here. I'm kind of trying to just, I guess people don't like it, but I am kind of trying to walk the line on this, because there are, as I said already, there are positives that you can pull out of this, but there's also negatives. And I can see the good and the bad on both sides. So, I'm not infuriated by it, but I am saddened by it. But I do understand at the same time that maybe this can be beneficial for the club going forward. And Sadiq saying Ratcliffe is supposedly a Manchester United supporter, and this is how he treats Sir Alex, and that's what I'm saying. Like, there's people like Sadiq is saying, there's tons of United fans out there that are hugely disappointed by this decision. They're angered by this decision. And I do get it, and I do get it, but maybe for the benefit of the club. Because while all the news really is on Sir Alex, I mean, there is the mention that none of the board members are allowed to, go into the dressing room as well. So it's not just like Sir Alex has really been singled out, even though he has gotten the brunt of it, because, he's been technically removed from his position. But at the same time, there's also an argument that, it was stated that this was kind of mutual. So, maybe Sir Alex kind of wanted to step away a little bit. I mean, he is on the much older side. You do see him and listen to him talk. You can tell that he is getting, to that state of that he does seem to be going a little bit down. I don't know how to put it nicely, but you could just tell that, he is declining in certain areas, as sad as that is. So maybe, maybe he wanted it as well. And maybe he felt like it was time to kind of just, take that part away. He's been there for a numerous amount of years. Uh, and I don't know, but it is a big thing that's gone on in Manchester United, and eventually, to be fair, this was going to have to happen one way or another, whether, he was able to do it now while he's still sort of healthy and he's able to attend, like, he's still able to attend matches. He still has his director box. So it's not like they've completely removed him from the club, like they did at one point where Sir Alex wasn't allowed to be involved at all without us actually knowing. And to be fair, at least this has been kind of communicated from the club. I mean, they could have just not said anything about it, really. And people could have just wondered, what happened to Sir Alex. But yeah, I mean, it is a difficult thing to kind of speak about. And I do get, people like Sadiq, I get their frustration. Richard saying, get someone in who can manage the club. They won't be living in anyone's shadow. I get that, Richard, but at the same time, I think even if you remove Ferguson, I think there's still going to linger that shadow. Because it is one of the greatest periods in Manchester United's history, and it is of the most recent. So people always look back to that period, especially when, no matter what it is, if it's good or bad, people always, people pull up stats, they look at the managerial record. So it already is hard enough. And, again, we don't live on the inside of the club, so we don't really know what has necessarily led to this decision in terms of, basically INEOS have removed all higher ups from entering the dressing room. They've basically excommunicated that connection between, the players seeing anybody from the board, including Sir Alex Ferguson, and or Sir Jim Ratcliffe or Sir David Brailsford, or anybody else really. And I don't know. I think it's just I think it's just I think it's a good move, but it's also, I don't really know how to feel about it because we don't really know what's going to come out of it. It could be good, it could be bad, but I think there's some aspects that are okay. I get it, but there's some things that just as a United fan, it hurts. I can't really, I don't feel angry. I don't feel angry. I feel saddened by it. I feel saddened by it, but I'm not angry. I'm not, and I don't know why I'm not. I feel like I should. I feel like I should be, but I'm not, and I'm not gonna pretend to be when I'm not. You guys know that, so, and Sadiq saying somehow he doesn't trust Ratcliffe, and there's a lot of people that hold that opinion and they don't trust Ratcliffe, and that's completely normal, because we're still kind of in the unknown. He's still new. We're still getting used to, I guess, each other, you know what I mean? And there's more decisions that are going to come, and I believe, there's going to be decisions that people are going to like, and there's going to be decisions like this that people are going to be very split, and it's going to be two ways over that, people don't like the actions that INEOS take. But I'm trying to just talk it out on both sides, because I don't know. There's arguments you can make. It is ruthless. It's something that fans have been asking for. They want people to be ruthless. They want decisions to be made ruthless. Now, I think what would help INEOS in this area is if they go, further with this. I mean, right now in the immediate future, this decision was always being able to be made before any other decision. I think what they need to do, if they're going to do things like this and they want to keep fans on their side and keep the confidence of fans, in their court or their side of the pitch, let's use a football term, they have to do something similar to the players that are on high wages, players that don't deserve the wage because they're not performing on the pitch, players that have probably overwhelmed their stay and that fans have been asking for the club to move on. And they have to do it, with the manager as well, to a certain degree. And I think that's the only way INEOS can kind of help themselves out of this situation. Obviously, these decisions, the action on those decisions aren't going to come quick. I think they'll come, when the time is right and available, which would be transfer windows. And some people are arguing already, with Ten Hag in the manager situation, that he should be one that they have to be more ruthless with. They obviously are being a little bit more lenient on that aspect. But yeah, Richard saying, I'm not going to start running Sir Alex down because of the Glazers. Sir Alex looked at things and footballing terms and ignored other things the Glazers done. And Richard saying they did not say anything about it. A journalist broke the story and they had to put out a statement. Yeah, okay. Fair enough. I mean, I always just figured that they kind of briefed the journalist, but maybe he did just break it because he has connections to the club and whatnot. And big up our moderator Stephanie Griffith is in here. She popped in. She couldn't stay long, but thank you, Steph, for coming in. And I'm sure she smashed the like button because she always does. So thank you, everybody that smashed the like button so far. Greatly appreciated. Axe is in here asking, really? I haven't, no. He said, what's my opinion on what happened to Sir Alex? Well, my opinion, Axe, of kind of what I've been saying is, I'm not angry about it. For whatever reason, maybe because I haven't really digested it all. I've been a little bit busy today, and I kind of just threw the show together, and I kind of went through the news sort of quick. But yeah, I feel saddened by it. But what I was saying was, I'm kind of looking at it right now I'm trying to see it from both points of view, because the fan base is highly divided by this. I've seen a lot of reaction. There are people that are very angry. There are a lot of people that are pissed at INEOS, and Sir Jim Ratcliffe, etc., that they've done this to Sir Alex Ferguson. There are people that are happy about it, to put it in a certain way. There are people that think that it's a good move. They think it's the correct decision. They have their arguments and their reasons and their opinions for it, such as that this has been discussed in the fan base for quite some time, and a lot of people say that United can't really move forward if Sir Alex Ferguson is always kind of, to use the term lightly, lingering around. And I don't really know how to feel about it in that aspect, because I don't know how much of an impact that really has on the club. I don't really know if it's going to make significant changes. I don't know if it's actually going to help us, be better in any aspect. And obviously Sir Alex Ferguson is a legend of the club. He's done, marvelous and wonderful things for us. And I feel bad that this has happened, because it's just not a nice story as a Manchester United fan. It's not, one of your greatest managers. Depends what you think. Your greatest manager ever at Manchester United, one of the greatest managers at Manchester United ever in football. Whatever you hold the opinion. He's obviously getting a reduced role in a significant way. And I can understand why people are, and like Richard is saying, here's why they got rid of Sir Alex Ferguson and not Ten Hag: money. And I think that that's a point that people are pointing out as well. Like, they don't really, it's being seen more as not really to help in the football aspect, but more in the financial aspect. And people don't like things when things happen for financial reasons. And Richard makes a good point that Ten Hag, to get rid of Ten Hag, it's going to cost them money. It's going to cost them quite a lot of money to get to stop, Sir Alex Ferguson being in the role that he's been for all the years since he retired. They're actually going to save money. So a lot of people are angry about that. And Steph saying the same thing happened with Busby. Legendary managers are a blessing when in situation, but hard to replace when they retire upstairs. And I thought that Sir Alex Ferguson was last paid by United in 2013. No, apparently, Axe, he's had a multi-million pound deal where he gets paid a multi-million pounds per year in the ambassador role. And that was given to him by the Glazers basically since he retired and assumed that role. So he's been getting paid you know, multi-million pounds per year since probably that year, since he assumed the role. He was getting 2.9 million a year as an ambassador, yeah. And that's kind of what I was saying as well, you know, that like I mean, in a way, I do see it as kind of almost a waste of money in the terms of that, you know, if you look at the things that have gone on his name in the ambassador role, he hasn't really done much for being an ambassador. In what I'm trying to say, I'm not trying to disrespect him. I'm just saying if you look at the ambassador role, his name has only been on one or two things since he's assumed that role. To get paid 2.9 million just to be, you know, kind of sitting around and kind of be, you know, that figure upstairs is kind of a waste of money. So I do get that aspect of financials, but it is disappointing and it is sad at the same time because a lot of people don't care. A lot of people feel like, you know, let him have it. He deserves it. It's Sir Alex, you know, for fuck's sake. Like, just let him have it. Like, what you know, out of all the people that don't deserve to get paid in certain areas and are you know, people say they're stealing money, Sir Alex Ferguson is the last one you should be looking to do cost effective cutting measures. And I get that. I do get that. You know, other club ambassadors are Andy Cole and Brian Robson. Going to be interesting what happens with them as well. And that's a good point from Steph as well, because there is talk that, you know, there is fear that they are going to also either lose their roles or have their roles reduced in some type of way. You know, so it is going to be kind of interesting to see. I'm sure there's going to be developments that are going to follow up into that, because I don't think Sir Alex Ferguson is going to be the only one. I think we're going to see a lot more of this kind of cost-cutting exercise. I mean, they've already done it with a numerous amount of staff where they, you know, deemed them redundant and got rid of them. And, you know, to kind of push the football aspect a little bit to the side and kind of look at it from a business aspect, this does happen. I mean, the most notable and high profile case would be Elon Musk buying X. You know, he did this almost immediately. He went in, he pretty much gutted the entire thing. And there was an argument for that it was completely overbloated, it was a waste of money, and it was hurting the company in a certain aspect. And there was many employees like kind of just like, you know, looking at it like, what the hell are you doing here? Why are we paying you all this money? Because you're pretty much useless and you're just, you know, wasting money. And you know, I'm not saying Sir Alex was, you know, useless or whatever like that. I'm just saying that, you know, if you look at Manchester United as the huge entity that it is, and X is a huge entity of course as well. This does happen quite often in the, you know, the business aspect of it, that they do go in, especially when new people take over something, they go in and they kind of gut the place and they kind of reduce, you know, costs and expensive that they deem is just, you know, extra and not needed, and they kind of, you know, get that they have to get them out to kind of improve and make the changes that they want at the place that they've taken over. Axe is saying, to be honest, the Glazers had some years when they cashed in 500 million, 3 million for a man who did so much for this club. I mean, forget that horse. When will the rat sack the Glazers? Well, you know, it's not solely up to him, Max. I'm sure he would love to take over the club, and, you know, it was reported that he wanted, I mean, his initial bid was for the whole club, but unfortunately, Sir Jim doesn't hold the power in that aspect, and the people that do hold the aspect are the Glazers. I mean, the Glazers hold all the power. We really have no say. It's really up to them. if they decide to sell, then Sir Jim can, if he wants, or somebody else can come in and take over the club fully and completely get them out. But there's nothing really Sir Jim can do for the moment in that aspect, because he just doesn't have the power. It's all in the Glazers' hands. So I get what you mean, though. I get what you mean on that. The Glazers have stolen so much money, and it's like Sir Alex Ferguson is the one that's getting punished for it. But I think it's a little it's just a sad thing, really. Richard saying, I get it, Eric, and he currently does not need the money. It is the way it was done, and there are others there whose wages and positions need to come under scrutiny before Sir Alex Ferguson. I think Richard is putting out a beautiful point, because this is what I'm saying. Like, I'm playing a little bit of devil's advocate. I'm not trying to, I really haven't made up on how I actually feel about this yet. So I'm trying to give a little bit of both sides. But, I want you guys, if you have a set opinion, if you have a certain way, like Richard and you guys are saying, then, give it. Because you guys are part of not only the community, but you represent the fan base as well. And there's what I'm saying is, I've seen a lot of reaction to basically, and similar things to what Richard is saying, and to what others are saying, and I get it. It makes sense. The sentiment is there. The argument is there. Like, it does make sense. It holds weight. And really, that's what I just want to hear it and hear from you guys and discuss it. But like Richard said, it makes it. It does make sense. Like, cardinally, he doesn't really need the money. And the position for what he's getting paid, it's not like he's doing, the most important work that's going to help the club in any real aspect in terms of being good on the pitch again. But, the argument that's been in the fan base is there's so many other people there, who are on wages and positions that need to be under scrutiny and that do need to be handled, and they do need to be removed, and especially before Sir Alex Ferguson. And I think that's what's kind of really upset the United fan base more so, is that it just, everybody's kind of looking at it in like, this is very unfair, because he's done so much for the club and he's such an icon and a legend. And, he's given his life to Manchester United. I mean, the man sacrificed. And when I say he's given his life to Manchester United, like, I really do mean, like, he sacrificed his life. Like, the time that he gave to Manchester United, the effort, the long nights, he's probably, to be honest, he's probably lost some years off of his life for that, because of the stress and the pressure that job pertains, but also just the personal aspect of it. I mean, time away from his wife, time away from his kids throughout the years, time away from doing things that, he enjoys. Like, obviously he loves his horse racing and stuff like that. Like, he dedicated a majority of his life to Manchester United. Like, he gave his life to the club. And that's why people are very, very angry about this. And I get that. I do get that, And Richard saying, yes, Sir Bobby, a foot that could break a crossbar, and many a time did. Yeah, I mean, he had it. I mean, we did the little tribute to Sir Bobby because it was his birthday a few days ago. So, and then Lions coming in here. And good to see you, Lions. I'm glad you could join us. And Lions saying, but he was well paid for his time, and he was. No, I don't think anybody's saying that he's not. I just think that it's come off highly controversial, as Richard said, because there's so many different aspects that you can look at this in this way. And actually, I kind of want to segment into this, and it continues on it continues on the conversation. But Erik Cantona has responded, and he's made an Instagram post about this decision, and Erik Cantona is not very happy, which kind of deepens the plot twist in here, because, according to statements or whatever, Sir Jim Ratcliffe's favorite player is Erik Cantona. He's named the company that, did the deal with the Glazers as, known as Troller United. So, Erik Ten has had this to say, and he said that Sir Alex Ferguson should be able to do anything he wants at the club until the day he dies. Such a lack of respect. It's totally scandalous. Sir Alex Ferguson will be my boss forever, and I throw them all in a big bag of shit. So, Erik Ten, not one to ever hold his words back. Sometimes he says some confusing shit that you don't know what he's talking about. But Erik Ten coming out on social media, being very strong in his opinion. Having Sir Alex's back. And I'm not surprised by it at all, because I think, Sir Alex loved Cantona and Cantona loved Sir Alex. I think Cantona always felt like Sir Alex was one of the very few people in the world that truly understood him as a person and as a human being. And it makes sense that Cantona was always going to back Sir Alex Ferguson. And he's really gone at INEOS. I mean, he said, to say the words "I throw them all in a bag of shit" is something that I would expect from Axe, to be honest. I didn't think he would actually say, I would throw them all in a bag of shit. I would assume he would have his opinions on it, and obviously, feel like it was a disrespect towards Sir Alex. But clearly, Erik Cantona very, very unhappy, and this is what I'm saying. Like, there's people, it's divided the fan base like I've never seen in quite some time. Because Rio Ferdinand has come out, and Rio hasn't championed it, but Rio has said it in a way of like, oh, they've gotten rid of Sir Alex, nobody is safe, this is ruthless, and it shows that, other people are in jeopardy. And the argument against that, because he tried to say it for players and etc., and the argument really against that is, like I said before, Sir Alex is 82, Sir Alex is retired, and you can cut Sir Alex's position and save money. You can't really do that to players. Number one, there's certain players, like, who's gonna buy them? Number two, you spent a shit ton of money on these players, a couple of them, and you're never going to recoup that transfer fee, because they were overinflated to begin with. Number three, to get rid of certain players, it's going to cost the club money instead of technically making the money or saving the money compared to Sir Alex. So I think Rio is a little bit misguided in his statement, thinking that, this has a knock-on effect to players and stuff like that. I think the circumstances are very, very different. When you compare it to Sir Alex, and then the players and the manager itself. So, and Richard saying, yeah, his children tell you that their mother raised them and he was 100% dedicated. He had to. He had to be. There's no way that you do the job, and you give, what was it? I always forget the numbers, so excuse me. I should probably know it, but 22 years, 25 years at a club the size of Manchester United, and you accomplish what you accomplished. Of course, of course he's not going to have time to raise the kids. Of course he's not going to have time to be with his wife, his late great wife. Of course, may she rest in peace. But and just other aspects that normal human beings are allowed to do. And some people don't even have that opportunity as well in a normal life. But yeah, of course, how would you be able to do that? How would he be able to succeed at the things he succeeded if he didn't sacrifice all those things? So, I always keep that in mind. Like, the guy did sacrifice a certain aspect of his life to give it to Manchester United. Like, he literally offered it to Manchester United and gave it up. So, and Axe saying, yeah, he also chose to invest a lot in United, and I'm not crying for him, but I have to ask, was this one of the most important financial aspects of United had to correct? And I don't think so. Axe, I don't. I think I really do side with the people, that have stated, like, and Richard has already stated it, that, there's so many other aspects in terms of waste of money when you look at players on certain wages and, what they give us on the pitch. And there's probably people in positions, up on, I mean, there's board members. There's two board members that they don't even get talked about. What do they do? What are their interests? They kind of float in the background. What are they getting paid? What have they done for the club? They've been there, over not with INEOS, but they've been there with the period over the Glazers that um continued after Sir Alex retired. What are they getting paid? There's probably people underneath them that don't get mentioned. Um, and it goes, all the way from the top into the in between, down to above the coach, down to the manager itself. And if you were to rank it, Axe, it's not one of the most important financial aspects United had to correct. It's really not, and I think that's why a lot of people are pissed off. And I can't disagree with them. They have their argument has a right to it. Certainly so. Cantona sent them directly to the shithole. I mean, he did. He did, and that's kind of going to be interesting because obviously, like I already said, like Sir Jim Ratcliffe's favorite player is supposedly Erik Cantona. I mean, he named the damn company after Sir Alex, after Cantona's famous, seagulls and trollers statement. So, but I don't know, in my aspect, I'm sure Sir Jim personally will probably be a little bit disappointed that Cantona is basically, said that I throw them all in a big bag of shit, and that, he's not happy with Sir Jim per se. But at the same time, I did mention a couple shows ago, and I did say how Sir Jim Ratcliffe is a ruthless man, and he will get rid of whoever he decides or he thinks needs to go. And unfortunately, as much as this is not the example that we need, it is an example of how, even Sir Alex Ferguson, somebody like that, at some point he will cut them loose when he deems it needed. And I already stated, and I'll state it again, the only way that this turns around really in the longer run, and people sort of accept it as time obviously moves on, is that they have to do it in other aspects, and they have to do it with other people and players. They really, if you're gonna do it to Sir Alex, you have to do it to the rest. You can't just do it to Sir Alex and then, make other decisions and be like, well, that's not really good. Like, there are players, and, Antony, I think, is one of them. I think Rashford is another. Not that I personally have hate against Rashford or anything, but he is one that is mentioned all the time. Bruno Fernandes is mentioned all the time in the fan base. Luke Shaw is certainly another player because of his injury proneness and his unavailability. And there's more players. If they don't do it with the players, if they don't cut these players loose, these players that have astronomical wages and have been certainly underperforming for the club and are deemed as a problem, a lot of people are not going to be on INEOS' side going forward. So yeah, Axe, it's not Cantona's business. So Sir Jim Ratcliffe, when he went to go make the deal with the Glazers to acquire the percentage he acquired, Sir Jim Ratcliffe created a separate company under his name, and it's the company Sir Jim named it as Trollers Limited, which is paying homage to Erik Cantona. So Sir Jim Ratcliffe obviously likes Cantona so much enough to name the thing after him. He named the company that acquired the percentage for Sir Jim Ratcliffe after Erik Cantona. So it's not Erik Cantona's business, it's Sir Jim Ratcliffe that made it. Sound like Cantona is writing a new country tune. The man can sing, by the way. He can. He's actually pretty talented. He was in some of the films. I don't know if you ever seen one of those films, but there's a film of him called Finding Eric. which he plays himself in it, which I actually thought was actually a very good film. It's quite old actually, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. If you never watched it, you should go check it out. I don't really know where you could find it. Do a quick Google search, see where it is, but yeah. Axe is saying, I love the internet. You can say whatever you want. Of course, don't be a Billy. Well, you could almost kind of say whatever you want, Axe. It kind of depends where you are, and it kind of also depends what you say, because, you know, there are people in certain places that are getting arrested for things that they are saying online. So you can't really say anything and everything, but you could say most things, and you could say it in a certain manner that hopefully it won't get you arrested. And of course, you know, don't be racist, and don't be, you know, things like that online. We don't want none of that, of course. And Richard saying Thomas Tuchel is the New England man. We do have update on that. We have more updates. I just kind of wanted to discuss this because this is kind of a big thing, and it's very divisive. So I kind of just wanted to have a good discussion on this before we got into the other news at Manchester United, and kind of just get this, you know, discussed and out of the way. But we're gonna get to that as well. Lions is saying, in the normal world, Antony could be put on a on a PIP by now, and probably on a pay cut to reflect his work performance. I mean, you could say that for a numerous amount of players. You know, it's not just him. It's not just him. Finding Eric is amazing, very funny and sweet. Yeah, it was a good movie. I loved it. Richard saying, yeah, so the good news is that we have a 36-year-old playing left back against Brentford on Saturday. Well, that is one of the things that came out that is not 100% confirmed, but there has been an early report, and Richard is referring to Johnny Evans, because apparently Johnny Evans may possibly be starting at left back against Brentford, which would, number one, be insane to me. Number two is I see it as a disgrace, really. Not because it's Johnny Evans. It has nothing to do with Johnny Evans. It just has to do with the fact that he's a 36-year-old centre-back, and we have no left-back, and Maz isn't going to be available. So we have Delo, no backup to Delo, and now we've come to the point where we have to play a 36-year-old center back at left back. Meanwhile, we have a Harry Amos, and they refuse to call him up. And again, this has been a bad decision all around. I mean, Alvaro Fernandez never really got a look, never really got a real chance at United. I did read something that, you know, an article by one of the bigger journalists, whether it was Laurie Whitwell or Samuel Luckhurst or something like that, where, you know, they kind of outlined the fact that, you know, while Alvaro Fernandez was here, he didn't really get a chance on the preseason. They prioritized Brandon Williams because Brandon Williams' contract was running out. They wanted to try and get some sort of a fee for him. They wanted to try and get some interest for him, so they used him. And it didn't lead to anything because he obviously left the club on a free. He's without a club right now. There was no interest in him, and we ended up not giving Alvaro really a real chance. We sold him to Benfica. He's now become the starting left back at Benfica. He's playing very well. And we obviously have a buyback clause at about 16 million or something like that, but it just seems like a very foolish thing. And we're kind of doing the same thing over again, in the fact that we have a Harry Amos, a player that is very young and may not be fully ready, but the thing is, he's plays left back and he is available. And in my opinion, while I am usually cautious with the youth, if we have reached this point where we are playing a 36-year-old center back at left back, I think that we should not be playing a 36-year-old center back at left back. We should be calling up the kid and letting him play left back, and having, you know, just keep Johnny Evans on the bench as a backup. If the kid plays bad, you pull him out, you put it on. At least you tried it. The thing for me that bothers me is we're not even giving it a chance. We're not even giving it as a, you know, just give an option, give a chance. What if he plays well? What if the kid is maybe ready? What if he takes his opportunity? You know, like, the fact that we're not even giving it a look or a go is the thing that really bothers me the most. It's like we haven't even tried it. Like, if you tried and it doesn't work, fine, and do whatever you need to do. But the fact that we can't even give it a go, I think is just ridiculous. And the club has put themselves here again because they could have maybe signed somebody on loan if they really needed to. They had a choice to keep Alvaro. They sold him for financials. They could give Harry Almas a choice. They haven't. And so now we're in this position where we have one right back and 0 left backs. And we're starting a 36-year-old center back at left back. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Lion saying, I'm so conflicted for the game against Brentford. I want us to win, obviously, but I want Brentford to play well. The audition of the century. Yeah, Lions is conflicted here because he wants his Thomas Frank to put on a show so he could get the job at Manchester United. But obviously, he loves Manchester United and clearly doesn't want us to lose. So, Alex D in here saying, did Continent take down that post because I couldn't find it? To be quite honest with you, he might have taken it down. But obviously this was screen grabbed when he put it up. So if it's not there anymore and you don't see it, then he might have deleted it and might have taken it down. But obviously he did put this up, and this was from his official account. And it was there at the time. So if it's no longer there, Alex D, then he may have taken it down for whatever reason, whether he decided to take it down. Or maybe he was told by somebody, but I can't imagine somebody controlling Erik Cantona in that way, telling him to take it down. I'm pretty sure Erik Cantona don't have a PR team or anything like that. And if he did, I don't think he would really listen to them. So if it has been taken down, I would assume he's taken it down by his own accord and his own decision. And, you know, we do know that Erik, from his history, he is a very, not to put it in a bad way, but he's a very emotional, reactionary person. So I'm sure when he heard the news, he was very, very angry, and he maybe just went to social media to reflect, to put out his opinion and his anger. Maybe he's calmed down a little bit, or he's thought it over and said, you know what, this isn't the way. I don't need to be doing this, you know, for the club and causing more commotion on the issue. Or maybe Sir Jim Ratcliffe has called him personally and talk to him about it, and maybe he decided to take it down after that. You know, so we don't really know why. Maybe we'll get an answer as to why, but we're not 100% sure as to, you know, what has gone on here. And just give me 2 seconds. We're gonna get into the other thing. I just need to update something real quick. Need to update something. Okay. Back to the show. Line saying maybe Goodwill should be given a call up for left back. Jesus, he's a big Godwill. Oh, I said Goodwill. No, not Goodwill. This isn't a charity. Godwill. Thank God I have never been emotional or reactionary. Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, we're all a little bit emotional or reactionary to a certain degree. I think some people are more than others. I mean, you know, Erik, you can certainly say. I mean, he has his infamous flying kick on a fan. So, there's levels to it, obviously, and always, of course. And you know, some people are able to control it a little bit better. Some people react instantly on it, and then, you know, I'm kind of like that in my own way. I think I used to be a lot more when I was younger. I used to get quite in trouble a lot in school because you know how school is. Nobody is really safe unless you're like the main head honcho where nobody can touch you. But nobody is really safe from getting bullied or getting picked on, you know. And while it might not be like a daily occurrence, your time usually does come. I think from where I grew up, I think everybody got it at one point or another. And I used to be quite reactionary and quite emotional. If it was my day for that to happen, I wouldn't take it very lightly. And I used to have this bad habit of, if I was angered, if there was something near me or there was something in my hand, that instantly became a weapon, which led to me getting in quite a lot of trouble. I'll tell you a funny story. One time we were in class and we were playing Jeopardy, right, to review for a test, and a good buddy of mine was in my class. And it was my turn to pick the category. As I'm thinking out loud, and I'm like, trying to think of what category, he jumped in and said something that wasn't nice. It was disrespectful, and he made fun of me, and the whole class started laughing, right? And I instantly got red, and I got mad, and there was a textbook sitting on my desk, and I picked up the textbook. The textbook was about yay big. It was this thick. I picked up the textbook and I launched it across him across the room, and I hit him in the head with the textbook. And that obviously hurt him. And then he kind of looked at me, looked at the rest of the class in like disbelief, and was like, "Did he just throw a textbook at me?" And I looked at him, and I was like, "I absolutely did." And I was like, if you open your mouth again and you say something else, I was like, the desk is the next thing that's coming at you. I clearly got in a lot of trouble for that. I also threw out some curses. The teacher, wasn't having it, and I rightfully got in trouble. But those things used to happen to me. If there was something there, I would just see red. I wouldn't think about it. Later on, I would reflect and say, well, that was fucking stupid, because I'm the one that got in the most trouble, and now I'm the one that has to deal with the consequences. And I was like, it didn't really solve any problems for me. It just created more problems. So I had to learn sort of the hard way. I used to get suspended from school a lot and stuff like that. Get in school suspension because my reactions. Now I'm no longer like that. Of course, I get fired up over certain things, but it's not to the same degree that it used to be. For sure. Richard saying, I am hoping to calm down when I get older. Me too, Richard. Me too. I think I needed a little bit more. All that pressure. I kind of say that's the same for my father as well. But my father, and he's calmed down over the years, but I kind of thought maybe it would calm down even more. But I don't think that's ever really gonna happen. I think he's gonna always have those moments of bursts and stuff like that. So but let's move on to the next couple updates, because we have a couple things we gotta get through. I wasn't per se a problem, Kid Axe. I was more just like, I never started anything with people. I kind of always wanted to. I always minded my own business. I kind of just was always trying. I was always very friendly with people. But people take advantage of that, unfortunately. And there's people out there that are just very mean and very rude. You know what I mean? And sometimes you feel like you kind of have to stand up for yourself. So I never seeked out things like that. I never started things like that. It was things that happened to me, but I would react poorly, is kind of what I was trying to say. Like, I didn't have the mental bottle to assess the situation in that point. I was very emotional and very reactionary. So if something bad happened, I would react in a very poor way, and instead of kind of processing it and be like, well, I can do this and I can do this. If I do this, what happens to me? If I do this, what happens? You know what I mean? So, but after a certain amount of times of getting in trouble, I did learn that, like, this isn't really solving anything for me. It's not, it's not, I'm just getting in trouble because of actions of other people. So I just need to react differently, and I did learn. So but yeah, I was just trying to put it as an example, that, like, there are levels, like, and it is hard to control, as you're saying. It's not just like it's not just something that you flick the switch on and off. It's kind of a process. Some people never really learn how to do it, and some people, they do tone it down a bit, but they were on such a high level that it is still highly aggressive. But we did get updates on Erik Ten Hag, right? And oh, let me get rid of the other things, because that just looks ugly. So Manchester United, and this came from Fabrizio, Manchester United insist that Erik Ten Hag was never really close to being sacked during the international break. This is one of the few updates that we've gotten to come out of the, I guess, meeting. Apparently it's a brief from the club, because Fabrizio said Manchester United has insisted that Erik Ten Hag. So apparently it's coming from the club. So I would assume it came from the meeting. Or it's related to the meeting at least. And that was followed up by Melissa Reddy saying that Manchester United have been very keen to be patient and offer Erik Ten Hag time and support. It was also from Fabrizio saying Erik Ten Hag didn't receive any communication from the club. The board never felt they had to tell him something. They discussed about the situation and the problems at the club. They insisted he was never really close to being sacked. And we kind of talked about this when that happened. Like, they didn't have to ever really call him and contact him if they weren't going to sack him, because his job was secure. And what they talked about and what was coming out of like his camp and his stuff was that, you know, his job wasn't under threat. Obviously, they had a discussion about it, but there's no reason to call Ten Hag and be like, hey, yeah, we had the meeting today, and you're still the manager because we decided not to sack you. I mean, if we decided not to sack you, when we already talked about how we, you know, weren't going to sack you, there's no point in making that phone call. So I think, obviously, clearly, a little bit more clarification that we gotten and stuff from today is that, you know, him being sacked was obviously completely blown out of proportion by the media. You know, and that it wasn't as close as they led us to believe, which is again, you know, just a shame on the media, because they really were putting out more guesswork than actual leads and indications. So I guess, you know, going forward, I'm going to be, I usually am, but I don't know. I guess I got caught up with the moment in the situation, because it really did feel like to me that he might get the sack at that moment. So, you know, when it comes to Ten Hag's future and stuff like that and the speculation, we really have to take it with like the smallest grain of salt, because clearly every time this happens, they clearly blow it out of proportion and they clearly start doing pure speculation instead of having real leads and stuff like that and giving us like actual concrete, you know, news or something like that. You know, or this could just be PR from the club, because maybe it was strongly considered, but obviously they chose not to do it, and they kind of want to come out and, you know, back the manager because the decision was to give him a little bit more time. So you kind of got to spin the PR a little bit and make it look like, you know, we stand strongly behind him, and that, you know, we do have belief in him and we are going to give him some time to turn it around. So that's also, you know, a thing. And Lion's telling me that I'm very passionate. Well, thank you. I do think I am, for things that I love and believe in. So yeah. Yeah, somebody else pushed the starting button 100%. Yeah, you could put it in that manner, definitely. Yeah, I think we're all like that, Axe. I think we're all like that, Axe. I think a lot of people have a lot of thoughts, but the point is, you know, there's a fine line between people that act on it impulsively and that people just act on it, or and people that don't act on it. The other update that we got with Ten Hag was this that came from Sports P, which kind of flies in the face of whatever came out from the club, basically saying Manchester United will sack Erik Ten Hag if the club lose their next two games against Brentford and Fenerbahce. Sources say the Dutchman is clinging on to his job. So, you know, there's still people out there in the media and the journalists that still do believe that Erik Ten Hag, his job is not, you know, as secure as maybe Manchester United are saying, and that he is on very thin ice, and that, you know, if, you know, the next couple games, which is still in my belief to a certain aspect. Now, whether it's 2 matches, 1 matches, 3 matches, 5 matches, I do believe that, you know, the next results are going to be important, of course, because it will determine the position of the club. And I do think that while INEOS, or, you know, some in INEOS, specifically Barada and Ashworth, do want to give Ten Hag more time and they don't want to sack him, again, I think, if the club is put in a certain position, they won't have a choice but to sack him regardless of that. So, the big implications will be coming from the results of the next couple matches. And Erik Ten Hag does need to get wins. He cannot, in my opinion, suffer really any losses in the next couple matches. But they get to 2 draws and a win, or a win and 2 draws or something like that. It's got to be something that kind of pushes us up from where we are. And Lions saying we're back to the old next 2 games bullshit again. Yeah, and I get that, and I think it could be perceived sort of as bullshit, but I do think there is some truth to it, because I think, let's say we play Brentford and we lose, and let's say we play Fenerbahce and we lose. I mean, our league position is going to worsen, pending results from other teams, and the Europa League position will be a disaster, because that means we'll have 2 points out of 12, which is very, very bad. Very, very bad. So, I don't know if that would mean that they would necessarily sack him after 2 matches, but then it could have the implication on the 3rd match. Whereas if he doesn't get a win, then I think surely, he would probably have to lose his job because of the position the club would be in the Premier League. But yeah, I don't know. Axe saying, look, I really thought about this. Either you like Erik Ten Hag or not. At this point, we have galvanized around him. At this point, we have to support Erik Ten Hag and encourage the players. It's your only opinion. Well, I want him. Here's the thing. I want him to do good still. Like, I still want him to win the matches. I want him to... I want Manchester United to win. I'm not here like, there's some people that have taken the position of they've had enough, and they see the only way forward for the club to get better and move on is for Manchester United to lose matches. They view it in the way of that, this guy keeps getting certain results. It's only, it's only delaying the inevitable. And so they actually want Manchester United to lose so he can get sacked. And I'm not sitting here saying that I want us to lose so he can get sacked. I just think that he won't be able to actually pull himself out of this situation. I don't see where or how that's going to come from. Now, it can happen, because I think there's always a possibility for all things. But I think that, I want him to necessarily do good, because Manchester United need the points, and we can still salvage the season necessarily, but we need to get the results now. And there's no time left to really, go 1 game up, 1 game down, or 1 game up and 2 games back. Like, we don't have the opportunity. We don't have the luxury of that. We really do need to win. We need to win matches. So, I do want us to win. I don't want us to lose, but I think that I don't feel confident about that happening, and I think that he will end up somehow getting sacked one way or another, depending on the next couple results. Now, he could go and win the next 3 matches in a row, and and then it'll be a different position, a different angle, and we'll be looking at it in a sort of different light. Not everybody, because some people are set that he needs to be sacked and he's not good enough. But in terms of just positional wise, yeah, we need to figure out, we need to see what's going to happen. Lion saying Xmas is when we'll know more. Richard saying we will always need to support the team, including the manager at the time. And 100%, like, I don't want the players to fail. I don't want Ten Hag to fail. I think they're failing, and they're doing bad. But, I'm not in the position of, like, I hope we lose. I hope we win. I want us to win every match. I go and watch every match in hopes that we win. I want to see a good performance. I want to see us play. I just don't see where it's going to come from. But if it comes, I'm going to be happy about it. I'm not going to be like, oh, now this means he's not going to get sacked. I'm pissed off and shit. Like, why does this keep happening? This is bad for the club. Like, no. If we get 3 points and we play good, it's good. It's good for the club. Like, we need it. We need it. Axe saying, I don't know if any of you like French philosophy, but it's that book Simulation and Simulacra. I don't know if you I don't know if you mistyped that. That's a French word, but which sort of reflects upon contemporary society. I put a French accent on that. I'm so stupid. Society, lifestyle, and information presentation. All that news about sacking him are just copies without an original. Richard saying, I never liked Frank O'Farrell as our manager, but I support him as United manager while he was there. Yeah, and that's kind of a little bit of today's time. Like, you know, the internet, you see a lot more opinions. I think back then, Richard, the thing is that, like, you know, it was like you, the people you knew, and maybe whatever you heard in the paper, or read in the paper from, you know, maybe an ex-player or a top pundit at that time or something. Now it's more like you get exposed to everything, so you see everything, and like, you know, that wasn't the thing really back then. So you do get people that there are out there that they do hold the opinion that they do believe that the best course of option for Manchester United is that this manager needs to be sacked, and the longer that he's not sacked is the worse for the club. Therefore, they've chosen that, you know, for the love of the club and the good of the club, this guy needs to lose matches, and Manchester United need to lose matches for Ineos to pull the trigger, because in their mind they would have already pulled the trigger. Like if you put them in position, they would have already sacked Ten Hag. And the way they're looking at it is like, clearly Ineos have not pulled the trigger. They don't do it. They don't want to do it because they think that something can be salvaged, when they already hold the opinion of it's not good enough. Nothing is going to be salvaged. This is going to fail, and it's only a matter of time. You might as well get ahead of it. So you do find people out there that do want Manchester United to lose, and they don't want us to win anymore because they are done with this manager. So, and Axe thinks they will give him until Christmas. I don't see him going unless the championship division gets really close. Well, I don't know if he'll get till Christmas. I mean, he can very well get to Christmas if we get some positive results in the meantime, but I think it has to come quick and fast. I think, Axe, if we lose the next 3 matches, I don't know how he's going to get to Christmas. Because even if you lose the next 3 matches, surely the 4th match, if you don't win it and it's a draw or a tie, surely he'd be pretty much sacked. So I think it's all performance based. It's all performance based. It's all about what we get in the results. So, um, yeah. So, you know, I don't know, but we'll see. We'll see. Um, we have an update to follow that Ten Hag news, though, that kind of has to do with him, which is from Chris Wheeler, saying that 2 recent transfer targets for Manchester United are having second thoughts about joining the club after seeing Erik Ten Hag's side sink to 14th in the Premier League, and the manager face more uncertainty over his future. Now, we weren't told necessarily who these 2 transfer targets are. But this is kind of a bad indication for what is kind of going on currently at the club, and does go hand in hand with the people that are arguing that, you know, Ten Hag needs to get sacked and that they want to see the club lose, because you know, they're arguing that, I mean, look what it's doing. You know, now there's transfer targets questioning if they should join Manchester United because, one, we're in 14th and we've been playing really bad. And there's a lot of uncertainty over the manager, and they don't know what's going to happen, you know, with his future. Because as a player, you don't want to sign and join for a club when you're like, all right, you're set, you know, this guy's the manager, you get in, and then all of a sudden that guy's sacked and somebody else comes in, because it might be somebody that you don't like, it might be somebody that you don't gel with good, it might be somebody that doesn't want to use you, which is bad for then your career. So the uncertainty over his future definitely causes a lot of problems, you know, not only internally at the club, within the club and the players, but also, you know, transfer targets that we are looking at. it I you know what, Ax? It's a good point. They didn't really say, and it's not really specified. I don't know if it's players that are in or future transfer targets. I kind of read it as that, like, it's targets that we have that might not want to join now, but it could be two players that we brung in that are concerned, because two recent transfer targets for Manchester United are having second thoughts about joining the club. I mean, you could read that kind of both ways, but it does more sound like, it does more sound like, it sounds more like targets that we haven't signed, but I'm not sure. Two recent transfer targets for Manchester United are having second thoughts about joining the club. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but it wasn't really. I think it's. I mean, well, that's what I'm saying, because it says it's transfer targets. So I kind of think that it's players that we haven't signed, that they are targets of the club, and we've maybe held some sort of discussions with them, or we had initial contact, but anything wasn't there. Yeah, that's kind of how I'm taking it. But I did see, like, and not just because Axe said that, I did see some people talking about it in a manner of like it's players at the club, but I don't think so. So, I don't think so. Now to the update following the manager thing, obviously Thomas Tuchel, a person that's been mentioned a lot and with Manchester United, basically since May last year, he has agreed to become the new England manager. And Tuchel and the FA have an agreement in place after fast-moving talks this week. Tuchel was instantly keen on the role when first approached and is set to earn a similar wage to Fabio Capello in excess of 60 million a year. 6 million a year. I was about to say 60 million is a lot. 6 million a year. Tuchel has been intent on returning to England since leaving Chelsea. A big selling point was not just his proven record of winning trophies, but experience working with some of England's players and overall knowledge of English talent. Tuchel's appointment is expected to be confirmed later this week. So Manchester United, for the people that wanted him, or Manchester United in general, such as Ratcliffe and stuff, we have missed out on Thomas Tuchel. Thomas Tuchel is gone. And I think, we did speak about how there was always the possibility that Tuchel was kind of pushing the United job from his standpoint because he was at home and he wanted a job. Maybe he kind of threw the FA into a little bit of a frenzy to act a little bit more quicker to give him the job so that, they don't miss out and he goes to United. So Thomas Tuchel is clearly out of the managerial candidate pool for Manchester United if we do part ways with Erik Ten Hag at some point, which kind of really only leaves, in my opinion, at this moment, it only really leaves Ruud van Nistelrooy to take over. So it indicates a little bit more that, if Ten Hag is sacked, it is more than likely, in my opinion right now, that Ruud van Nistelrooy will end up taking over, probably as interim for at least the remainder of the season, unless he does such an exceptional job, they pull a Solskjaer and they give him the full-time job, which I think they are, at this moment, weary of doing because they have a prime example of how that happened. But it would definitely go at least to the end of the season where they could at least get, another more permanent manager. And they would obviously take that time to evaluate their options and stuff like that. But I think, number one, I will say, and this isn't, an England channel or whatever, but I think it's a good move for England. I think that England have actually done the right thing. I think England at the FA have actually done something smart for once in quite a while. I think if they gave it to the interim that they had, it would have been a huge mistake and it was a wrong decision. And I think it's good for England. Tuchel is still a good manager. And I think for international wise, I think, he can get them to play some good football and actually use the strengths of the players that England has. So, I think with him there, I think England has quickly become a favorite for the international cups again. So I think they did a good move. I don't know if it would have necessarily worked at United, because there's always different implications, and you know, there's always that thing of the 3 years and he doesn't last really, and you know, but yeah, he's out of the pool, so we got to see what happens on that aspect. um the pressure, this pressure has been lifted. Rajat is in here. Rajat, good to see you, buddy. How you doing? We spoke about Sir Alex Ferguson being removed from his position. I don't know if you feel anything about that, or you have any opinion about that. We spoke about Ten Hag and how apparently his job was never really under threat. It was blown a little bit more out of proportion, and um yeah, he's here to stay. So and now we're touching on Tuchel, and we have a couple player updates as well that we're gonna get into. So we're gonna do that quick. And Axe saying, I told you United was leverage for him. And yeah, there was always that possibility. I mean, it was kind of an indication there, because the news about him was coming out from him, and it was coming from his side, and the contact was more from his side than it was from United. United didn't really contact him. United wasn't really pursuing that. So it was really more from his side. So obviously he kind of did leverage it. You know, I think he just kind of played the game in terms of one of you is going to give me the damn job, whether it's England or United, whichever one is to offer me the job. I'm going to take that job because I want to go back to managerial and I don't want to be sitting home. And clearly, obviously, England have pulled the trigger because they had the vacancy and they had the opportunity to do it, and United have decided to stay with Ten Hag. And after staying with Ten Hag, you can't hire Tuchel, and there's nothing really to contact him about. You know, you can't. It's, you know, you can't really make a deal with Tuchel. You can't be like, listen, Thomas, if the next 3 or 4 matches don't go well and he doesn't get it, then you know we'll give you the job. But if he does do well, then he's going to stay for much longer. I mean, you can say that, but then Tuchel's not going to accept that, and he's not going to really wait around. I think he's waited around long enough anyway. I think he kind of decided he was going to take a break, and he waited to see, you know, how the season would go for United, and it started very bad, and I think there was maybe a hope on his part that maybe they would sack him, and he would have taken the job if it was offered him, but clearly they decided not to sack him, and I think he's tired of waiting, and he's not going to pass up on the England managerial job because they would have gave it to somebody else. So yeah. Act saying, sincerely, as a national manager, you won't get to spend so much time with the players, so there is a smaller chance of having disagreements with players. Well, that's what I'm saying. I think it's a little bit better for him anyway, because there's a little bit less fight, there's a little bit less say, right? You don't have to, you have a pool of players to pick from that you can call up on. Obviously, you know, it's based on, or you would hope at least it's based on performances and merit. You don't have to fight with the board over, you know, buying players and who to play, and there's not really a fight over, well, this player's on this much wage, I wanted this player, we didn't get him. You have a pool to select from, and you choose them based on that. So it's a little bit probably easier, and it's probably better for him as well. So, and Rajat saying he thinks Tuchel's a great appointment. Yeah, I think it's a good appointment for England. I do. I think it's probably one of the better decisions they've made in more recent times. Did have a day. Richard also pointing out, plus international football does not come with the same pressure as a football club. Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Just all around, it's a totally kind of different. It's kind of a different element. There's so many different things, you know, compared to club football than there is to international. And I think for Thomas Tuchel personally, I think, you know, based off of his characteristics, I think it's a good move for him, and I think it's a good move for the FA of England. So. Yeah. But we did have these updates here as well on Ugarte, which came from Dean Jones Soccer, saying Erik Ten Hag's focus on properly integrating Manuel Ugarte is set to intensify this week. So, you know, I don't know what that really means in the long run. Does that mean that, you know, we're going to see Ugarte starting after a certain point? Is he just going to be the number one starter? Obviously, you know, Ten Hag made his initial comments that kind of had people stunned, saying that it would take Ugarte at least 2 months to integrate. I think we've seen an example of that because he hasn't put in the greatest performances in any opportunities that he's gotten, and I think that he is one of those players that it's going to take some time to adjust to not only Manchester United but to the Premier League as well, and really find his spot there. But yeah, apparently it's going to intensify, so we might be seeing a lot more of Ugarte. We might see him starting more matches. We might see him getting more playing time, which I think is good because, again, he was part of the main plan. He was an important, player that we had to get in, and the faster or the better that we could get him integrated and we could start moving forward with that, I guess you can argue it's better for the team. So, yeah, yeah, I mean, but I guess let's see how that goes. I think that midfield is still a big question mark because I think number one, there's a few different options that we could make with it. And I still don't think Erik Ten Hag necessarily knows what his best starting midfield is. I think he's highly confused in that aspect. I think I think he needs to stop rotating it so much and just kind of, pick one and kind of stick with it. And I don't even necessarily know because some of the players play good and then some play bad, but some offer things for defense that others don't, and some offer things, attacking output wise. That midfield is kind of a very confusing situation, and I think that's probably one of the problems. It's not the problem per se, but it's definitely one of the problems to Manchester United's inconsistency is because the midfield is inconsistent. The players we play there, the selection of the players is inconsistent. The performances from the players that go there are inconsistent, and I think that kind of leads to the inconsistency of the rest of the team as well. So yeah, Rajat saying get Bruno Meno. Fit De Jong in that midfield would cook. Well, I think that De Jong thing is kind of dead. I don't think De Jong is ever coming. I think De Jong boat has sailed a while ago. And he made it very clear that he wants to stay at Barcelona. He doesn't want to come to Manchester United. He doesn't, for whatever his reason is, whether he likes Barcelona more than United, whether he thinks Barca is in a better situation than United, maybe he doesn't want to play in England. There are players out there that regardless, if they think the Premier League is the best league or, a club in the Premier League is one of the top clubs in the world, some people just won't go to England due to the weather, and the landscape, as well. I mean, the contrast between Spain and England. Spain is like always sunny and beautiful weather. In England, it's always raining and it's quite depressing at times. But so sometimes players don't want to go just for that reason. Axe saying with the stamina that Eriksen and Casemiro have, rotation is almost a must. Plus, you would want to avoid the injuries. And yeah, I mean, I get that, but I know you have to rotate. But there has to be a way that we do it in a better manner. I think we've been doing it very confusingly as of lately. I think there's, it goes from players starting to not starting, and then other players are starting, and then, you have Eriksen who plays good, but then doesn't play good. And then Kobe is used almost every game, and then, he gets a slight injury or something like that, and then you have to change. I feel like we need to get a midfield where, we can actually, you can rest them with some minutes, but it needs to be this is our best performing midfield. This is our main midfield. When it's right, we pick this midfield, and then going from there, you can make substitutions, 60th minute, rest one player, sub them out. I think chopping and changing the midfield, and we haven't even gotten the midfield to perform to its best as well. So, yeah, I think the midfield, he really needs to figure out what he's going to do with that midfield. I think the midfield in his first season was very important. I think it led to part of that success and part of us playing very good and like very consistent was that he had that midfield. It wasn't his ideal midfield because he wanted De Jong and stuff, but he made it into a very solid foundation of a midfield. Now, one of the things that has happened that Axe did, allude to is that, towards the end of that season, we did start suffering a lot of injuries because maybe we didn't rotate as often as we should have. And players were getting fatigued and started suffering a lot of injuries. And then we obviously all know what happened the following season, which was probably led on by the first season as well. So we just have to find that balance is all I'm saying. I'm not saying like, just take a set of 3 midfielders and play them for 90 minutes every match and don't rotate. You got to find the balance. But I think that that's something that he needs to do if he's going to find consistency and keep his job and start getting performances and results, is that he needs to really find that balance. I don't think he's found it yet. I don't think he has. And I think that's why you see a lot of inconsistency. It's one of the factors for sure, in my opinion. But speaking like how we spoke earlier, and we spoke a little bit about the left back situation, and we spoke about, why Harry Alma should get in, and the concern that Johnny Evans may possibly be starting at left back against Brentford at the weekend. We did get a good update, a positive update about Tyrell Malacia, and this came from Man United Men, which is Manchester Evening News, saying that the expectation is that Tyrell Malacia may finally make his return to action for Manchester United this month. So, while in the immediate future, per se, the next couple games, we might have to play Johnny Evans at left back, because Maz is going to be out for a couple games as well. It appears as though that hopefully and maybe Tyrell Malacia will be able to make his first appearance in some sort of way within this month. So the next two to 2.5 weeks or so, we could see Tyrell Malacia coming back. I believe Luke Shaw should also be coming back somewhere around that time, if not a little bit ahead, because I think Shaw should be ahead in his progress compared to Malacia. So we might be getting the left backs quicker back sooner rather than later, which is good because we need them. But it's going to be interesting to see how that goes, because if one of them suffers an injury or two of them suffers an injury, some type of a re-injury or a new injury, it's not going to be good. So that's something that's going to be watched heavily. And also, what is their performance going to be like? Because, Malacia hasn't played in over a year. Pretty much. He hasn't played a game. So for you to come back after that long period of time, it's definitely going to feel probably a little weird for him. He's probably definitely going to be a little bit off of it as well, because not playing in a professional match for such a long time, at that level, you're never going to be up to pace. And you might feel a little bit strange just being back out there. It might feel good, but you might just not feel as comfortable as you normally would because it's just something you haven't been doing. And Luke Shaw as well. Luke Shaw hasn't played for United, at least. He hasn't played for quite some time. So even when they do come back, they might still not give the performance that we actually need, a left back. So this whole left back situation is really something that, again, it's another problem at the club. It's something that is kind of crippling us. And we're going to need to get it sorted out, and we're going to need to get it right if we're going to have something about this season. But yeah, now we do have another update. And apparently Antony's future is in question, and apparently Antony may be sold. So, according to Chris Wheeler, Manchester United are open to letting Antony go out on loan in January to help secure a permanent move for him next summer. The club would listen to offers of around 40 million for the Brazilian, which that last line had me laughing by myself at my phone when I read it, because I understand what they're trying to do. But I also knew or immediately the instant reaction and people's reaction to that line of that no one is going to pay 40 million for him. No one is even going to offer anywhere close to 40 million for him. So a lot of people are just going to deem that already that we're not going to sell him. Now, I think from the club standpoint, you kind of have to ask for 40 million or say somewhere around 40 million in the hopes of that somebody offers maybe 20. And I think if somebody actually comes and offers 20 or something around that area, I think they may consider doing it and actually pulling the trigger. Because if you say you consider it around 20, they're going to offer you 10 or something like that. And they're trying to obviously recoup as much money as they can. But no one's going to pay 40 for him unless he goes on loan and he plays really good wherever he goes on loan to. And then maybe somebody would be willing to offer somewhere closer to around 40, maybe 30 or 35. But at this current state, there's definitely no interest for Antony in terms of a permanent move. I'm sure there's a couple clubs, maybe like in the Turkish league or something else, that they would be okay with taking him on loan. But in terms of permanently selling him, I don't think there's any interest from any club. Therefore, Manchester United don't really have an option but to loan him out in hopes of that he goes on loan, he performs decently well to get a little bit more interest in him. And we've already seen INEOS do things like this. They've done it with Sancho. I mentioned earlier they tried to do it with Brandon Williams before his contract expired. So this seems like a normal, typical move from INEOS where, you know, there is like no hope of the player at the club. Therefore, they will loan him out to another club in hopes that they play well. It is really a gamble because, number one, in terms of squad depth, we are removing a player out of, you know, our available players. Now, some might argue, you know, he's shit and he doesn't offer anything. So really, like, you know, what kind of loss is it? But if we ever suffer an injury, somebody kind of still needs to fill that role. Or we're one man less that can be put in that position. But you know, I think this is really the only thing that we can do, and I think it's in unison that he's never going to. He doesn't fit the club. It was a bad signing. Obviously a lot of people want to say it's really bad because we paid 80 million, but again, that goes on the club and John Murtaugh and fucking Richard Arnold and etc. because they are the morons that refused to do it in June and went and did it 2 days before the transfer window. And they decided to pay 80 million because Ajax didn't want to let go of their player 2 days before the window. So but even if you forget the 80 million, even if we signed him for 40, which I think is what his actual quoted price was at the time, he hasn't produced anything for 40 million. He's been really bad. He's been really poor, and he's never going to make it. So it is time for Antony to be moved on, especially if we're going to follow the philosophy of Omar Barada, who gives players 1 to 2 seasons max, coming in, and if you don't do it, you gotta go. And I think, Antony has certainly reached that position. And as bad as Sancho was, and, as much as I don't like the whole thing with Sancho, I think Sancho obviously did more and was better than Antony. And a lot of people, including myself, think that, whatever Sancho gave us still wasn't even good enough, and they're about the same price. So, I rank Antony under Sancho. So I think he does have to leave the club. We do have to move him on. He's one of the players that, listen, we talked about it early in the show. United are cost cutting things. They've sacked Sir Alex Ferguson from his position. They're not going to pay him that money that we've been paying him for the past 11 plus years, whatever it is. And so they're going to have to do it with Antony. He's one of the players. Antony's got to go. I mean, it was a bad signing. We're going to have to take the L on it, but, keep the same philosophy. It might not necessarily save money because you're taking a loss on the fee, right? But you won't be paying a wage to a player that is completely useless at the club and has failed at the club, and you can get somebody else in at some level that will maybe be able to help the club out on the pitch. So, he's one of those players. Jason Gala is in here. Jason, glad you could join us. Jason saying glad Tuchel got the England job instead of a potential United move. And then he said Almadana, which is Maltese. Yeah, I mean, I was to the point, Jason, where I was against Tuchel in the summer, but I got to the point with I don't really know what is the best way forward in terms of if you do get a new manager, who is the best option, who's actually going to succeed. I don't know. If they thought it was Tuchel, I was willing to give it a chance. I had my doubts, I had my my worries about it, but if they did it, I would have at least gave it a chance to see how it goes. Whereas in the summer, I was more highly against it. Now, I kind of view it as, while he probably wasn't my top candidate, and I did have worries, I do view it as that is one less option for Manchester United to take and to go down. And it does kind of, it does kind of tighten the situation, Jason, because I think at the moment where we stand is we are in an aspect, whether they want to admit it or not, I think if you look at the way they're moving around, we are in an aspect where we are very wary of the financials. I think, there's a concern that if we don't finish in Europe, we may fall into some sort of a penalty with FFP or the EPL version of it. So I think they're looking at that. They're like, well, all things concerning right now seems to be very financial. Not sacking Ten Hag because you have to pay him 17 million. I think there's still a concern, like, if you sack Ten Hag, you pay 17 million. You're 17 million down. You bring somebody else in, or you give it to Rude, right? If you give it to Rude, you don't have to pay, right? But then we still might not make Europe. We still might make the Champions League, which is going to hurt us financially. And if you tack that 17 million onto missing out on that money, it could put the club in a very, very bad position where we do get hurt by FFP or something. At the same time, also, if they go to hire a new manager and they don't, Rude is only in there for a couple matches or whatever it is, obviously the managers available are managers at clubs, so we would have to pay to buy them out. So you're going to spend 17 million plus buy out the manager plus risk the option, because there's no guarantee that we would finish in a good enough position to get that European money. So it would be a lot of heavy implications on the financial aspects of Manchester United. So I think there's a lot of that playing into what's going on at the club right now. And I think it does have big implications on us. And Rajat talking about Antony and Sancho basically saying, both are flops, and saying that he can see him going to Sporting or maybe Porto as well as something like Benfica. I mean, I think he could go there. Like in terms of I don't think it would be a bad transfer in terms of that. I don't know, if there's any interest from their sides. Obviously, the Portuguese league, they love their Portuguese people, but they also do have many Brazilians that play there. And to be quite honest with you, Rajat, I like how you said that, because I think that's his level, really. He's one of those players that, and no disrespect to the Portuguese league, and especially no disrespect to Porto, Benfica, and Sporting, because they're always playing in European competitions and they have a European history as well. And I think those three teams specifically, while you could argue about the rest of the league because it's not really that competitive other than them, I think those three teams, they get severely disrespected by a lot of people when they really shouldn't, because they are competitive in European matches and European competitions. They always have been. But there's quite a lot of players that are, it's good for them. They play good. They fit the league good enough. But they're on that level. They never really would enter a top 6 club, right? There's some players that do, and there's examples of that. Ruben Diaz, Bernardo Silva, etc., etc. But there's many players over there, that they never reached that level. That is their level. And I think Antony is one of those players. I think Antony was always a player that his level is to play for maybe a team like that in a league like that, and he should never really be anywhere near a top 6 club because he just doesn't have that ability. So more expensive than anybody, 177 games for a 21-year-old. And 100% believe Antony first season was better than Jaden. Yeah, but I think I think performance-wise, I think Jaden offered more. If you look at the 3 seasons compared to each other, or whatever it is, and obviously Sancho had gaps in there, but if you try and compare both, I think as much as I dislike Jaden Sancho, I'm happy that he's not part of the club anymore, and I felt like he did need to be moved on. I still think when Jaden was on the pitch, he still had more things to offer in terms of just regular play, passing, dribbling, shooting, and maybe the statistics might not back it up, but I think just in general play, I think Sancho had more to offer than Antony. So therefore, in my opinion, I think Sancho did better than Antony, which is why I'm saying, for me, Sancho was shit and wasn't good enough. And he was a flop as well. But I rank Sancho over Antony, which just shows you how low of a level Antony of a flop is. So yeah, that's just kind of what I was trying to put it across there. Jason saying, I wouldn't change the manager at this point. We don't need another rebuild again. Well, we kind of do, Jason. And maybe we don't have to change the manager per se, but in my opinion, and I've been saying this for quite some time, Jason, we are technically in a rebuild. I mean, Ten Hag talks in the manner of we are in a rebuild. I think INEOS are moving in ways that is kind of in a rebuild. And this is one of the things that we've been talking about for a little bit on this show, on this channel and in this community, is that we are in a weird position where we are in half a rebuild and half not a rebuild. And part of it is because this is Erik Ten Hag's 3rd season, which I'm glad that you bring up this point, because you view it as almost that we are not in a rebuild, and if we remove the manager, we would be pretty much going into another rebuild. And I think we're somewhere in the middle, which is actually not very good, because we need to have one solid direction, and it seems like we're kind of caught in the crossroads of both. I think if you look at certain aspects, there's an argument for we are in a rebuild. If you look at other aspects, you could argue that we are not in a rebuild. We are 3 seasons into the original rebuild. I mean, from Erik Ten Hag's point of view, or surrounding Erik Ten Hag, this is his 3rd season. He started his rebuild, or the rebuild started under him when his 1st season. We're 3 seasons in, but INEOS just kind of took over, and we really have a new hierarchy and a new structure, from this summer window going forward. They're in year 1. They're new. This is their 1st season. We also hired a bunch of new coaching staff, so they're new, and they're kind of in year 1, season 1. Erik Ten Hag is not. Erik Ten Hag is in season 3. Some of these players are in season 2, season 3. Some of them are in season 4, season 5, season 6, and have been part of 2 or 3 different rebuilds. So the club is not necessarily on the same page in a bunch of different aspects, which I think is also a problem, because I think the club as a whole, in every aspect, has to be on the same page in the same direction for us to really move forward. And I think we're kind of caught in the crossroads right now. So, yeah, I think it's an interesting point, but, and Jason saying start recruiting youths like he did with Mano. Well, we have a lot of youths there. A lot of them are making good progress. I would like to see maybe 1 or 2 more getting called up. And we might see somebody like a Dan Gore get an opportunity rather sooner than later. One that pisses me off, that's angering and frustrating me, is I think it's a perfect opportunity to give Harry Amos an opportunity, considering we don't have a left back at the moment. But they seem very reluctant to do that, and it doesn't seem like they're going to do it. Rajat saying, and then they need to spend another 500 to 550 to 600 million more on players, plus the extra 17 million need to be inserting more money into the next coach project as well. Dan Gore may make our bench next match. I think Dan Gore is one sooner rather than later. I think he seems to be picked as one of the next exceptional talents, one that seems the most promising to flourish if he does get added to the senior squad. So he does seem like he's in the pole position right now. We obviously have to wait and see, and we don't know exactly how long it could take, but we will see. And maybe he'll be included for the squad when we go to Brentford as a surprise, because we don't really know when they, make these decisions. They usually come as a surprise, so we gotta wait and see, really. But I think he is the one that seems the most likely. I think Spain is a good place for Antony. Getafe seems like the perfect move. I mean, Spain could be a good move as well. I think it kind of fits his game a little bit more as well. And yeah, but Line saying the club is in a rebuild, not so much the team anymore. Well, I still think the team needs to be in a rebuild anyway, though, because I think the way I'm looking at it is we're in phase 1 of a rebuild. Like, we are, like, INEOS are there. They're making changes structurally, and, like you're saying, they are, the club is in a rebuild. The club structurally, in terms of that, it has been in a rebuild. But I think even player-wise, so team-wise, the team aspect still needs to be rebuilt. I think we did very well for the first summer transfer window. I like the players that we got in. I think it was a good window. But in my eyes, we need another 2 windows like that. And I'm talking summer windows, because January windows are always very difficult. And I don't, how much can you really add to the rebuild? Now, you can still do business, and I think INEOS are going to do some sort of business. I don't know if it's business that we would all want or that is the most important business, but, there has been talks about players being let go in January. Harry Maguire is one that's been reported that, they are willing to accept 10 million offer for Harry Maguire, and they might sell him on in January. So, but my thing is, if you're going to get rid of a couple of these players, we obviously are going to have to bring in 1 or 2 to kind of fill the hole or the gap left by them in the middle of the season. And you would argue that we already need 1 or 2 other players on top of that to kind of fill the gap that is in the current squad with the players right now. So, I think we will see some business. I think we might see 1 or 2 players sold, and I think we might see 1 or 2 players in, if possible. But in reality, we need 2 more summer transfer windows, and they have to be like on that level of goodness. Like, they have to be good transfer windows like we just had. We need 2 more like that. And I think then the squad will really be, I don't want to say rebuilt, because you have factors that have to go into it, like gelling the players. Some players may need to, progress and adapt and grow in terms of players. But I think that phase of having to bring in players would be out. Then it would be more of getting it to mold very good. But I think we need 2 more windows like that. I think if we could do 2 more windows of 5 players, like how we did, that's another 10 players. We bring in 5, that's 15 players. That's a whole starting 11 plus 4 on the bench. And I think that's when you can say that we kind of really nailed that process down. Rajat saying, no, this is our first actual rebuild. Other ones with Ed Woodward don't count. And I agree more to that in that sentiment. Whether they coined it as a rebuild or whatever, we never actually did a rebuild. And what I'm trying to say also, Rajat, is that while, I think many of us kind of see it as our first actual rebuild, we still have a lot of progress for it to be a successful and good rebuild, because I think we're stuck in a crossroad. I think we are doing in one aspect the first actual rebuild, but there's spots of the club that aren't on the same page. Like, Ten Hag is in year 3. Some of these players have been here from a previous rebuild under the old regime and, the 2 seasons prior to Ineos coming in from Ten Hag and prior to Ten Hag even being the manager. So if we're going to have a real rebuild, and a real one, and I think Ineos are working towards it. I don't think we're there yet. I think they're working towards getting there. But I think there's some aspects that are there and some aspects that we have to then go address. Like some of the players need to go. Antony is one. There's arguments for Rashford, Bruno, etc. People are saying, some people, Maguire. Casemiro is another mentioned. There's players that need to go, and then you got to bring in all those squads so the club could kind of be on the same page. So, Lion saying, I agree with you, Eric, about Amos, but I think he might need to bulk up a bit first. He is a bit on the slim side for men football. I think he might be loaned out to a championship team first. Yeah, I mean, he is on the smaller side. He is on the smaller side, so I do get that, and maybe that's something that they're kind of concerned about. But again, for me, it's just like, beggars can't be choosers. It's not like we have an abundance of left backs right now. So it's not like I'm trying to force the kid. It's not like I'm saying like, oh, because he's youth and he has all this high potential, I want to see him play. I usually am very like that with them. I do know that he is on the smaller side. He probably does have to bulk up. He probably does have to improve his abilities in certain aspects, and probably the best thing for him would be to go and get a loan and play, regular at a higher level than in the academy. But the thing is, for me, at this current moment, beggars can't be choosers. We don't have a left back, and he is a left back, and therefore I want him to play. Like, I want him to be given an opportunity to play left back. I don't, he might not be strong enough, but screw it. I mean, I don't see, like, him not being strong enough doesn't outweigh the fact that we're playing we might play a 36-year-old center back who doesn't have like the best of legs at left back in a position that, number one, we've been inverting and playing as a center mid, and number two, needs legs. Like, you need to run, because the left back and the right back, they get up the pitch pretty high, and if we lose the ball, you got to get back. Like, I don't know how Johnny Evans is going to be able to do that job and play fucking 90 minutes, because even if you put Johnny Evans in there, who do you sub in for Johnny Evans after he's dead after running for 70 minutes? The only thing you could do is take Delo, play him to the left, and put on Victor Lindelof at right back. If you don't need Victor Lindelof for center back, because obviously Maguire is now out for a couple weeks, and then there's De Ligt and Martinez, and Euro is not back. So we have almost a potential sort of a mini injury crisis going on at the back, at least at the very back. It's in the defense, which isn't good. So maybe they will do same thing as they did to Amad Diallo with Harry Almas, loan him to Championship Club, or let's loan him to Sporting or Nice. Well, I'm not against him being loaned out. I'm just saying, for the current situation is we don't have left backs, and he is a left back, and then we only have one right back now, and there's no backup for the right back, and then it's like we are spread thin. Like, even if you have Delo and Johnny Evans, or you play Lindelof and Delo, the substitute for both those players is Johnny Evans. And then after Johnny Evans, who are you subbing out? What if you play a game? What if we play a match and Johnny Evans is dead on his feet and Delo gets injured? What do you do then? Who's playing left back then? You know what I mean? Like, Johnny Evans can't continue and Delo gets injured. So now, well, you have Lindelof, and who are you putting there? I mean, this is what I'm trying to say. I'm not against the kid getting a loan, and he may not be ready, but again, beggars can't be choosers. We're not in a situation to be picky. You're like, well, he's on the smaller side, so I'm not too sure. No, like, we're not in a position to be picky. We have a kid that plays left back. At least put him on the bench. at least give him at least make him be an option to be put in just in case. What if we suffer an injury? What if we suffer a red card or something, or both the wingbacks are booked on yellows? I mean, we're just limiting ourselves in options. Like, even if you don't start him, at least keep him, at least put him on the bench as an option. I don't get it. You know what I mean? Line saying I was kind of joking when I said, God will Kukoni, as he's only 16, but at the same time, physically he's basically a man, and he's left-footed. I actually Lines, I actually don't know who that is. I've never heard of him, and I've never seen him, so I'm gonna have to go check him out. But yeah, I haven't heard of him yet, so he's a new name to me. Axe is saying if he plays Amos and he plays really bad, the fans and press will eat him alive. It may kill him pretty fast. I mean, maybe, and maybe you're right, but you know, at least for me, I will keep it fair, and I will say, well, you know, he played him and it was shit and it didn't go good and he played bad, and I won't eat Erik Ten Hag for that decision, because I think it's the decision that many people are asking for. But I do understand that, Axe, because it is very unfair when you are a manager and shit. And things like that happen. You know, there's tons of people that cry, play the kids. And when they play the kids and it goes wrong, they then, you know, they attack the kids, they attack the manager for playing the kids, and, you know, it's never really a win-win unless it goes right? But I think for the very least, at least put him on the bench, Axe. If we're not starting him, at least get him on the bench as an option, to give yourself an option. You know? It's like, I don't even know what to compare it to. You know what I mean? I don't even know what to, I can't even think of a metaphor for it, really. But it's just like, so it's like you have two cars, right? And one is old, or you can have two cars. It's like getting the option to have two cars, and one is old and it still runs, but you don't know when it might break down, right? So you're not sure. Now you have the option that you can get a second car. It's cheap, right? It's cheap. And it's not as powerful as the other car, and it might not get you there as fast as the other car, but you can still have that car as a backup option. And it's like you choosing to just be like, no, I'm going to rely on just this car, and I don't need this other car. And if the car breaks down, the older car, right? If the car breaks down or something happens to the car, you're going to end up walking when you don't need to walk, because you had another vehicle that you could have possibly used. So we just need to give ourselves the option at the very least. I mean, if you're not going to start him, you're not going to start him. It is what it is. But for me, at least, the very least, the minimal, put the kid on the damn bench. Give us an option. You know, even if you got to sub him in for 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. Lindelof doesn't have much pace. I don't think he will play fullback, but if he has to, he gonna. Well, he played right back the last match, Rajat, before we went on international break. He came in and he played right back. He doesn't have much pace. He's not ideal to play right back. He's not ideal to play left back. Well, we didn't have an option because, number one, Harry Amos isn't on the bench. We don't have the other two left backs. Maz had to come off, and then Delo had to be shifted to the left, which left us with Lindelof playing on the right. Now, thankfully, Lindelof played pretty good at right, but I don't know how sustainable that is, and I don't know if he's going to be able to do it every match, and he does lack the pace. And yeah, and Richard's saying we need to do something, that's for sure. Rajat saying maybe Leach is an okay alternative to play left back versus Brentford, though he's not the best at defending them wide channels. I mean, we tried that as well. He tried to put Leach there. He did it two or three times, and I don't think it was very good. And this is what I'm trying to say. It's like, I don't understand. Like, we have a kid that's a left back, and we're trying everything but to try and, you know, just try the kid out. I don't get it. I honestly don't get it. It doesn't make sense. Like, if you don't want to start him, fine. But you can't give him 10 minutes. to prove himself. Maybe he plays good. Maybe he does good. Maybe he takes his opportunity. You know, sub him on. Just sub him on. But what kind of option would that be if he isn't ready? I mean, it's for me, Axe. It's for me, Axe. It's better than nothing. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. At this moment in time, maybe he isn't ready, and I'm always aware of that, and I always say that about a lot of the players. You're gonna hear me say that about a lot of the younger players. Like, and a lot of you ask for these younger players to come in, and I always say the number one thing. And I said it about Amos in past previous videos. That he wasn't getting called up, and maybe he's not ready. But it's better when I look at it right now for the current situation. It's better than nothing. Like, he is a left back. He does play that position. We don't have a left back. We don't even have a backup for the right back. We don't really have options. So the way I'm looking at it is like, it's him or it's nothing. And I would rather have him, even if he's not necessarily ready. I'd still rather have that option of a player that actually plays that position than have no option of a player that plays that position and play players out of position that aren't fit for that position. At least just for the current moment, I'm not saying like he is the answer and we should be starting him every match, but just for the current situation, I mean, I don't know. Van Gaal would have played Almost by now. Yeah, probably. I mean, he did play a couple, he played Rashford. Then he went through a couple youth players. If he is physically and mentally ready, I'm sure he will get to play. Well, yeah, there's definitely concerns that he's clearly probably not ready in some aspect. But at the same time, I keep saying, like, beggars can't be choosers. We don't have the luxury of really being like, oh, he's not really ready. We're scraping at the bottom of the barrel for left backs and right backs right now. We need something. We need something. But let me finish up these things because we had a couple more updates that we didn't get to. So United apparently, that was supposed to go on top of this. So apparently, according to Plettigol, it is possible that Manchester United will sign a central defensive midfielder in January transfer window, which I find kind of strange. Maybe Casemiro will be moved on or something, or maybe they are still looking. I mean, I had my concerns about when the window closed about that midfield wasn't complete and that we still needed another player. Mason Mount keeps going in and out of injury. Eriksen seems kind of done, and maybe he'll get moved on. So maybe we will sign a central defensive midfielder. I think that, there's a lot of arguments. People are saying that we should be signing or we should have signed a more experienced striker, which I think that's probably not going to happen in January because that's one of the more difficult deals to do. And maybe we need a winger or something like that. But I don't know. But apparently, I think we will get 1 or 2 players in January. I don't know what positions, but according to this, it is possible that we sign a central defensive midfielder in January transfer window. Do you guys think that we need? Do you guys think that we need him, or would you get a different position? It's not Pogba. If anything, it would be who is it from Bayern? Is it Kimmich or Goretzka? Who's the one that they're trying to get rid of? Is it Goretzka? I think it would more likely be somebody like that. I don't think it. Definitely, most certainly, will not be Paul Pogba. If it would be Paul Pogba, you're gonna see me do a 20-minute rant on here about that. Yeah, I think Paul Pogba, no chance. And I would hope certainly not. Line saying I'm going to lose my shit if Thomas Frank becomes the manager, but you're going to lose your shit if Almas plays on Sunday. Yeah. Jason saying Euro, Malacia, Mazawari, and Shaw should all be fit by end of November. That might change things. Well, that's what we're hoping for and we're waiting for, Jason. And we do need them to come back. There's still a worry about, I'm not worried about Euro per se, because I think Euro is young. And I think hopefully, there's no worry on Euro right now because, there's just the hope of he's taking his time. He's not been rushed back. Hopefully everything was done correctly in terms of surgery and whatever, rehabilitation and all that. And when he comes back, he'll stay fit and he won't get injured again. Shaw and Malacia are of super concerns because number one, we know Shaw constantly always gets re-injured. He always gets some type of injury. I expect Luke Shaw to come back and sustain some type of an injury for some type of period sometime during the season. If it doesn't happen once, it could happen 2 or 3 times. Malacia is one that there's question marks over because he's been out for so long and we don't actually know, what has happened to him in his body and his rehabilitation process. There is a possibility he's come back stronger than he ever was before. Maybe he'll be fitter. Maybe he'll be in better shape. Maybe he won't be. Maybe he'll be susceptible to some more injuries. So maybe he gets re-injured or injured in a different type of way as well. So, we have to see how that's going to play out because while they are coming back, and Maz is good. Maz is good. It's just that Maz, had minor corrective surgery and he's going to be out for a couple games. But Maz is expected to be okay. So I'm not really concerned about Maz, and I'm not really concerned about Euro. I'm concerned about Malacia and Shaw because we don't know how long they're actually going to be fit for. Malacia and Shaw, I mean, not Shaw, but I think Malacia maybe could do the whole rest of the season and be fit, or he can sustain injuries. And I think Shaw will get injured at some point again, unfortunately. And I don't want it to happen, but I just think it will. His injury record, provides it. And it's Goretzka. Yeah, so I think Goretzka, if it is to be a center defensive mid, it would be somebody like Goretzka, or if somebody else happens to pop up, because every once in a while, when you get to January, a deal or two that nobody was really expecting or looking at does pop up. It does present itself. So maybe it's somebody that, isn't necessarily being considered right now. Rajat saying management told Erik Ten Hag, Malacia and Shaw would be fit, ready to come back. And yeah, but they told him that last season. You know what I mean? And that's how I kind of see it, that we made the same mistake twice because we've gone into the season without 2 left backs and it's taken them longer than maybe they originally thought, which I'm okay with in that aspect because I don't want them to get re-injured. But it was bad on the part that we didn't have some type of a contemporary, our plan was to play Delo and Mazawari and play Delo at left back till Shaw and Malacia were to come back, and I don't think that's a very good strong plan. I don't think so because we're seeing why. In my opinion, we should have either signed a left back on loan, anybody. Like, they might be bad, but you still need somebody to play that position. And if not, and if you're not going to do that, then just call the damn kid up just so you have an option. Just so you have an option. I'm just saying, like, we got to give ourselves options. Rajat saying Luke Shaw is kind of a coward. He don't want to face criticism when he comes back into the team. I don't know, but I don't know what you mean by that. Criticism for what? Because he hasn't been around, or like his performances. Because I think when Luke is available and he's fit, I think Luke plays very well. I think Luke is an important player to the team, actually. And I think we actually kind of miss Luke Shaw. I think Luke Shaw does many important things when he's there. When he's fit and he stays fit and he gets into his rhythm, Luke is one of our better players. The problem is that he's never fit. Or he's not fit for long. So, the best type of player is a player that's available. Which is why it's somebody like Mason Mount, Like, I don't want to hate Mason Mount. I don't want to, like, go against Mason Mount. But not for nothing, Mason Mount ain't available. He's always constantly out. So yeah. Jason saying, Lions saying more midfielders would F up the development of Gore and co. Well, maybe not. I mean, we did talk about, maybe Almas needs a loan. And maybe Gore could take another loan. Not necessarily, because I think there's room to be made there. I mean, right now we have Cass, right? I think Cass, if he doesn't go in January, I'm highly sure this is Casemiro's last year. So Cass will be going, and Eriksson will be going, by the end of this season at some point. So if they go, and you sign one other midfielder, CDM, and then you also bring in Dan Gore, I think there's enough room for all those players. So I don't think it would necessarily hurt Dan Gore development. Would it delay him getting into the starting team? Maybe, because you would pick, you know, the new signing over Dan Gore, but I don't think it would necessarily hurt him. You know, what if Dan Gore is brought in and he struggles for quite some time, and then, you know, it's deemed that we got to give him a loan? What if it's something similar to Diallo? You know, Diallo kind of took quite a while, but he took his opportunities and chances, and he did good on his loan, and now he's made his way into the team. So, Jason saying, I remember that the Champions League game when Shaw got a tough injury during the game. I knew his career would be over that night. Yeah, where he broke his ankle. I mean, that's one of the toughest injuries to ever come back from. And it obviously had a bad impact on him. But that wasn't even always the issue, Jason. I mean, if you look prior to that, the guy was injured every season prior to that major injury. I mean, obviously that injury didn't help, but he already had some type of an injury proneness to him before that. And it's obviously continued after that, because he never completed a season for Manchester United. Even the first season we signed him, he got injured and he never had a full season. And he missed games. So Rajat wants to sign Xavi Simons. Well, he was one linked with us, and maybe that could be one. Bayern's kind of forcing Leon out of the team, yeah, but he's also holding his ground because he does have a contract there, and he doesn't have to necessarily leave, so he could just sit there if he really wants to. Luke is average. He's good at times. Kind of overrated at left back. I mean, there was a time where he was considered the best left back in the Premier League. I mean, the way he was performing. So, I don't think he's that overrated. I think the problem is that he's constantly in and out. I think if he was able to stay fit, I think you would see how good Luke Shaw really is, because he would have the consistency to show it. But I think the fact that he comes in and, like you say, he's good at times. I think he's good at times because he sustains a period of play. He then gets injured, comes back. He obviously struggles to get up to the pace. And that leads to, you know, performances that aren't that good. And then when he does get up to pace and puts in form, he does end up getting some type of injury and goes back out again. So, Lines is saying, Richard's saying Luke is a great player when he's fit. He's just not fit often enough. Luke has never been the same since the leg break. And yeah, I think that's, you know, all 100% on point. 100%. Gore is so close to being first team ready, though. I mean, apparently he is, because they're scouting him enough. I mean, you know, who was it? Jason Wilcox went to go watch him. So they are highly considering him, though. And I get that, Lions, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to help his development. Because it can, because it could be something like similar to Kobe and Garnacho, right? But it could also be a situation of, we bring him in, he really struggles in the first team, and then we might have to loan him out or something to get a little bit more experience and game time, and for him to step up a level. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but it is a possibility. Like, just because he is integrated into the first squad doesn't mean that it's actually going to go swimmingly well for him. It could go wrong. I hope it doesn't, obviously, but I'm just saying, you know, one way or another, it could go both ways. No, he's 100% injury prone. He is injured too much. No, he's 100% injury prone. He is 100% injury prone, and that's the problem with Luke Shaw. I think that, you know, he would be, if he wasn't injury prone, he would be one of the best left backs on a consistent basis in at least the Premier League. But the fact that he is injury prone, it makes him not one of the best left backs, because one, he's not available, and two, he's not playing. So, Lions saying fit Luke Shaw is one of the best left backs around, physically, speed, reading the game, ball control, real baller, but obviously he's not fit. And I think that's what it is. I think that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. Now, we did mention a couple players, so let me just tag this on real quick. Apparently, and like I said, Christian Eriksen is unlikely to be staying at Manchester United beyond the end of the season, despite his recent first-team revival. Number one, regardless of the first-team revival, I think it's definitely 100% the right move. I think he's too much on the older side now. We're going to continue the rebuild. We need younger profile players. and let's rebuild this squad so that, you know, the squad can be together for the next 8, 9, whatever years. I think, you know, Ericsson needs to go. I think Casemiro definitely needs to go at the end of this season. You know, they're here for now. We use them. That's fine. I'm okay with it. I'm not going to throw a rant, but I think, you know, going into the next summer window, I think Ericsson got to go. I think Casemiro's got to go. If you bring in Gore, that's good, but definitely get 1 or 2 other midfielders to replace these guys. We also have to see what we're going to do with Mason Mount, because if he's also an injury-prone player, which he seems to be very injury-prone, and we can't really sort that out, I would say we should probably look to move on Mason Mount as well and get somebody that's available and fit. There's a lot of things that we can do, you know, so we really do need to just see and examine the squad and really make those moves. And, you know, I'm going to be looking at Omar Barada to be doing those things because, again, that is part of his philosophy that, you know, he said many things. You know, if a player comes in and they don't perform, we give you 1 to 2 seasons out. We recoup that fee. We get somebody else. We try to get rid of players before they actually decline so we could get some type of a good fee. Obviously, these... Oh, sorry. Obviously these players are already on the decline. So there's not much you could do with them, but you do need to get them out and get new ones in. So yeah. And somebody that's been linked with the club in the past, but I think we all said that we expect him to go to Real Madrid, is Alphonso Davies. And Alphonso Davies from Plettigol, who's the German source, saying that Alphonso Davies is one of Manchester United's desired transfer targets for the upcoming summer. They have already gathered information, but they don't consider the chances to be very high. As of now, he could leave on a free transfer. And it looks like he is going to be leaving on a free transfer, and my money would be that he is going to end up in Real Madrid, which is absolutely crazy because, I mean, Real Madrid, just look at the squad they have already. They have damn Ferland Mendy, and they're going to get Alphonso Davies on a free as well to add to the squad that they have. I don't think we really stand a chance in getting him. I would love to get Alphonso Davies. I think he's a very good player. I don't think he'll stay at Bayern. I think he's going to end up going to Real Madrid. Is he a left? He's a left back. He is a left back. He's like a left wing back. You could almost play him left mid, realistically. I think, you know, he's really, really good. He's really, really fast, and I think he's really, really good in the attacking output as well in terms of for a left back. I would love him to come to Manchester United. I just don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately. And I do think, you know, if it does come down to he is a free agent and he has the pick of the lot, I think he will obviously more than likely pick Real Madrid over Manchester United. Because I think he'll pick Real Madrid over any club. You know, it's not just specifically to Manchester United. I think, you know, Real Madrid is probably on the top of his list. So if they want him, they will get him. Because I think, you know, if it's Real Madrid versus Liverpool, he's picking Madrid. If it's Real Madrid versus Barca, he's picking Madrid. If it's Real Madrid versus, you know, whatever other team, I think he's picking Real Madrid. So I don't think, I don't think we'll be getting Alphonso Davies, as much as I think he would be an absolutely fantastic addition, and I would love to see him come to Manchester United, play in the Premier League, and just rip that left hand side apart for whoever, you know, comes up against him. But yeah, we did get this small update though on. Apparently, Manchester United are moving closer to making a decision over the future of Old Trafford. There was no details really following this, but we will keep an eye out and look out for this, because apparently we are going to get some updates on what INEOS and Manchester United have decided to do going forward about Old Trafford. Are they going to knock it down? Are they going to stop using it completely? You know, what are they actually going to do? We haven't gotten anything 100% confirmed. We've had some things that have been sort of leaked or, you know, told to us, but no actual official decision has been made yet. So we're going to be waiting for that. And that's that for those updates. Axe always tell me to stay hydrated when I drink my water. You gotta stay hydrated. Gotta stay hydrated. It's very important. I mean, we don't have to necessarily have young kids. I agree. Like, and that balance is very important. I'm not saying like we have to go completely young, but you know, if you swap out Ericsson for a 26-year-old, I don't think that's very young. I think that's like, you know, right in the middle of their career. I think they're experienced enough, and they should be developed enough. You know, I kind of look at them. Um, I kind of look at them and I'm like, you know, they number one, Casemiro's on super high wages and he doesn't have the legs, so he's got to go. And Ericsson, I'm not so completely against it, but his contract is coming to an end. He's probably on a higher wage than I would like, and he also doesn't have necessarily the legs. I think he's a good person to learn from, but we do need to balance it out. We don't have to go super young. We don't have to be getting, you know, two 18-year-olds to replace Casemiro and Christian Eriksen. We could get a 26, 25, maybe a 24 or 27, something like that. You know, we do have to have a balance. Of course, the balance is important. We can't just go too young. We need to have a nice, but I would like to have the average age of the team be on the younger side. You know, the average age of the team has to be, I don't know, 25, 26, something like that, maybe even 24, so that they can really build for the next few years. I mean, you know, you give 8 years out of that to that squad. They should be gelled. They should be good. They should have the understanding with each other. If you look at many projects, a lot of clubs do that. I mean, Man City is a prime example. Look at Man City's team. Look at the players that they've had. You know, their De Bruyne's, their Bernardo Silva's, their Ruben Diaz's. There's a lot of players that have been there for quite some time. And they've been there for a long time. And you know, they're probably at the point right now that you would say that you kind of have to replace those players and rebuild. And they haven't really done. They've made some additions, some extra additions there. But they did have a lot of players that they got in that were around that age, 23, 24. They're much older now, or a little bit on the older side, but you know, they came in and they developed together and they became this strong core team, and they were able to be successful over that period of time, you know, for a long period of time. Now it's kind of coming to the end and you have to kind of replace them, but yeah, something like that. Yeah, Alfonso physically ripped. We should calm down buying from Ajax. Um, I mean, if there's a deal for a player, we should do it. Henko is a name out there, but I mean, we shouldn't go crazy, and we should be doing deals that are good priced. And if the player, you know, scouting recommendations and stuff like that, we shouldn't just be doing, you know, like one of the things is we could have gotten Kudus instead of Antony. Like, this is what I'm saying. It's not that like because we bought players from Ajax, it's bad and we should stop buying players from Ajax, but you just need to make the correct decision. Like, clearly we made a huge mistake in going for Antony and not going for Kudus, because Kudus is obviously 10 times the player Antony is, and he's been a revelation since he's gone to the Premier League, and that's the player we actually needed. So it's not necessarily we have to stop buying from Ajax. We just need to buy the correct players, the ones that are actually good enough, and we have to be scouting and identifying better. So yeah. Let me just check. We're gonna end real soon, but I'm gonna check to see if we got any updates while we went live. We might have gotten some updates. Apparently this is from Sammy Mokbel. 49 minutes ago, saying Manchester United are still considering the future of Erik Ten Hag. A United defeat by Brentford on Saturday could see him sacked. So this is another person going back to, you know, the other update that I had that said that, you know, his job is still under threat. If he loses the next 2 matches, he would be sacked. We did get this update now coming from Sammy Mokbel, saying that, you know, his future is still being considered and that a defeat by Brentford on Saturday could see him sacked. I think that would be a little bit crazy. I think it would take more than just a defeat to Brentford, but I think a defeat to Brentford would push him. You know, if you're walking the plank, you know, pirate ships and all that, and they make you walk the plank, I think a loss to Brentford would push him, you know, if not to the edge, very, very close to the edge. So yeah. Um, and and I'm seeing if there's anything. Thomas Tuchel signed his contract, valid until July 2026, so after the World Cup. So Tuchel is gone probably until after 2026, so he won't be coming to Manchester United anytime soon. Um, in recent weeks, Thomas Tuchel was made aware that he would be Manchester United's #1 target if they came to replace Erik Ten Hag. That's coming from the Times Sport. And he clearly, obviously, didn't want to wait around, and he didn't want to chance it. So, you know, if that's true, he clearly was like, there's an England job. I want to go back to manage. That job is available now, and I'm not going to sit around and wait for Manchester United. So, yeah. Eriksson has scored an equalizer for Denmark, as I was, you know, talking about him needing to leave the club in the summer. He obviously still has some things to add, but I just wanted rejuvenation kind of the squad as well. So yeah. And that is all the updates that we have for today. How credible is Sammy McBell? I mean, he's pretty credible. I would probably put him mid tier. You know, he's not like a. Listen, these guys that post him, and you know, we're supposed to be trusting these aggregators, right? They usually rank these guys. He's a chief football reporter for the Daily Mail, so I would probably put him somewhere in the mid tier. I don't think he's not Fabrizio, and he's not like Laurie Whitwell or any of the other guys that are considered top tier Manchester United sources. But I don't think the guy is like the Sun. I don't think he's like some random Twitter person that claims to have like, you know, in the know or whatever. I think I would say he's mid tier. So yeah, I think there's some things there. No Alex Partner, Jesus. You guys pull up these names of people that I completely forgotten about at the club, and then it makes me, I don't even know. It just makes me not want to think about them. But all in all, if we count the whole Dutch league purchases, Van, the Man, and Stam are the only ones I think of that actually worked for us. Yeah. Well, where did we get Van Nistelrooy from? You said Van the Man. Oh, never mind. Yeah, I think the pay was bad. The pie wasn't good. Who else did we get from the Dutch league? Antony, obviously, shit. Was Butner from there as well? Can't think of any of the players. I'm sure there's a ton, but I can't think of them. Blind, we got Blind. Blind, I think was okay. He was okay. He wasn't like horrible. I think he was pretty good. It's at periods. He went on to do much better after he left us. He had some success with the Ajax. The Grenhoff brothers. That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, I don't know about all that. But listen. I enjoyed today's show. Van Persie, even though we didn't get him directly from there, but yeah. I mean, technically, yeah. I enjoyed today's show. It was a good conversation. It was good to be back. Obviously things are going to be heating up a lot more now that we're coming back to, coming back from international break, and we're going forward into, the weekend where Manchester United are going to play Brentford. So we're going to do, probably a couple more shows. Tomorrow is Wednesday. And we will probably go live. We will probably go live tomorrow. And I'm going to aim. Let me try and tell you real quick. I need to see something before I can actually tell you. But I will tell you. Audience. So tomorrow, because tomorrow's Wednesday, right? Tomorrow we could probably pop on. We'll probably do a little bit of a later show, maybe around 8:30 p.m. UK time, somewhere around there. And yeah, we could do a show tomorrow, and then we'll see how the rest of the week goes. We'll probably take a break on one of the days and just skip it. And then we'll head into the day before the match, the day of the match, and then the day after the match as well. So I'll schedule it. I'll try and make a community post and keep you guys updated as well. If you guys haven't smashed the like button, please smash the like button and help the channel grow. If you did, thank you very much, and I greatly appreciate it to everybody that has. Shout out to all the chat. Shout out to Jason, Lyons, Richards, Axe, Rajat. Stephanie was in here earlier. Yeah, and everybody else that got involved, thank you guys for being in here. Thank you guys for carrying the conversation. Good discussion as always. Greatly appreciated. And I guess I will see you guys all tomorrow. We're gonna do a little bit of a later one, so I hope you guys will be able to make it, and we'll see what the news brings us tomorrow. And we'll see the discussion around Manchester United. I expect to get more things coming up since we are coming out of this international period. So yes. And Jason's out of here. Thank you, Jason, for joining. Thank you for being part of the discussion. Appreciate it. But yeah, I will catch you guys later. I'm gonna go. I got some things I got to take care of, and it is a little bit late here now. So everybody be good, stay safe. Enjoy yourselves, and we will speak very, very soon. And thank you guys for stopping by and being part of the show. I appreciate it as always.